Hey guys, it's Reyna and today I'm going to teach you a very complex grammar topic. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. We are going to be learning about tenses. Now tenses are very finicky little things, especially because of the number of rules and the number of tenses we actually have. So it tends to be very difficult. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it will become easy once you learn all the rules and all that. Because it's not going to be easy no matter what you do. There is always going to be a scenario where you mess up somewhere. And that's normal, you're human. So what I'm going to do today is give you a pretty concise gist of all the tenses, and then hopefully this becomes a proper foundation for you to build up the rest of your English learning career journey thing. So with that in mind, let's begin. Now, first things first, tenses are constructed with the help of 3 different times and 4 different aspects. The times being present, past and future, and the aspects being simple, continuous, perfect and perfect continuous. Now every time has all these 4 aspects, and because of this we have 12 different tenses. Of course, depending on who you ask, they may tell you that there are less or more than the number I've given you. However, we have universally 12 accepted tenses, so I'll stick with this. Now this is how I'm going to actually teach you. First, I will tell you the formation of the tense, then its uses and then its examples. Now because I am lazy and I don't want to sit here for any more time than I have to, I'm going to be taking this as like in parts. This series will be taken in parts, 3 parts to be exact. In every video, I will teach you about 4 different tenses. So, let's begin. Now, let's start easy. The simple present tense. Now, this is formed like I'm going to say right now. Subject plus the verb in its V1 or present tense form. Now, the subject here can be any pronoun or any noun. And some examples are she works as a teacher, I work in a library, they take a walk. Now note, my first 2 examples required me using the same verb, work. However, depending on what subject I used, the verb differed. This is a very important rule in grammar and happens to be one of the most simpler rules, as long as you don't get distracted and things like that. It is essentially called subject-verb agreement because you want the verb to agree to your subject. So how this works is that after certain subjects, the verb will either change or remain the same. So if we take my previous example where the actual verb would be to work, and if we take the subjects I, you, we and they, then the subject will be followed by the verb in its radical form, which is work. And it will remain in that way. However, if you follow it with he, she or it, the verb following will have an added s. So it will become he, she, it works. Now of course the added s will either differ to either simply just an s or an es or something along the lines depending on what verb you're using. However, this is something for another day. Now, the simple present tense has 2 different uses. The first is to talk about habits, daily doings of different people and things you do daily, because it's never going to be something you simply did in the past and didn't do again. So some examples are, I brush my teeth every day, I drink coffee. Things like that are my habits. And the second usage is to refer to facts. Now these can be facts about general people or like general truths or universal truths. For those of you who don't know, universal truths are the truths we've considered completely true. Things we've considered completely true. And things like water boils at a certain degree, water freezes at a certain degree, things like that. So some examples are, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. This is a universal truth. It's universally accepted. I like chocolates. This is a fact about me. She works as a teacher. This is a fact about another person. I am an aunt. This is a fact about me. And this is actually true. As of today, I am an aunt. I have a niece, so yay! Now that my awkwardness is over, let's continue with the next tense. Present continuous. Now the present continuous has the formation as I will list right now. Subject plus is slash am slash are, depending on what subject you're using, plus the verb in its ing form. The verb in its ing form is essentially taking the radical of the verb and then putting ing after it. Of course, depending on what verb you're using, once again, how you add ing can differ. So once again, this is not something I want to talk about now. Another day. Now, this has three uses. The first is to talk about a continuous action, as in an action that is still going on. It hasn't been completed. So some examples are, I am drinking coffee. By what I'm saying, you understand that I started drinking coffee and I haven't stopped drinking coffee. I'm still drinking said coffee. He is teaching his students. Again, he is still teaching his students. These are the examples for continuous action. The second is to talk about changes that are happening right now. Okay, now technically speaking, this use can be clubbed in with the first one, but I thought it would be better to just split into two. By what I mean by changes that are happening right now is that things that are still going on, that it started at some point and it's changing, it's still going on. So statements like oil prices are rising. This is something that's happening right now. The earth is getting warmer every day. Something that's happening right now. It's a change that's happening right now. And the third and final use of the present continuous tense is when you're talking about something that is temporary, a temporary activity. Let me explain by taking an example first. I am taking French classes. Now what I mean is that I started taking French classes for the purpose of learning French. Now I will continue to take these classes until I don't have a use for it. I have finished learning French, or I have lost interest or something along those lines, and I would have ended those classes. Now this is temporary because it has a beginning, it has an end, and it's over. So temporary activities. For temporary activities, when you're talking about them, we will use the present continuous tense. Another example is, I am watching a very interesting series on Netflix right now. There's a series on Netflix and it's going to end at some point. So it is a temporary activity. The last two tenses we talked about were in the present tense. So now let's talk about the past tense. The first one we're going to start with is the simple past tense. Now simple past tense is formed as shown. Subject plus the verb in its V2 form. This is just as simple as the first tense we discussed today, which is the simple present tense. Now you have already heard me mention the V1 form for verb, the V2 form of the verb, two times. So what this is that when you first learn about verbs in school, right? You learn that there are three main forms to a verb, which are V1, V2 and V3 forms, which are respectively present, past and past participle forms of verbs. I wish I could tell you some sort of pattern to learn all this, but there really isn't a pattern, so forgive me. These are things you have to learn by heart, and the only way to genuinely learn it is to realize what you're saying and understand, take in all the English you hear or read somewhere, and then try to figure out what tense it is in, and that is a very helpful clue in telling you that which verb is in which form. So now keeping that away, the simple past tense has only one use, and that is to talk about things that have happened in the past, actions that were completed in the past. Very simple. Examples are, I watched a movie last night. I drove a car for the first time yesterday. They left the country. Anthony built this house in 1985. These are things that have been completed, actions that were completed. Someone built a house, it's over. I watched a movie, it's over. I'm not continuing it at any point. Now, the past continuous tense, the last tense of the day, and the one tense I was dreading. I will explain in a bit, okay? Now formation is the subject plus was or were depending on the subject plus the verb in its ing form. I already explained what that was earlier. Now this is where it gets hard because it's a bit hard to explain how this tense works. So here we go. Here's my example. I was finishing a project when a new one popped up. Take a timeline. This is the past, this is the present, and this is the future. Now if we take my example and put it on the timeline, this is how it will go. At some point in the past, I started to finish my project, which is a very important thing and a very fun thing to do, and like, yes, my assignment's almost over, my project's almost over. And I've continued to finish it and it's in the present right now. However, in the present, something has happened to interrupt my action, which in my example was a new assignment or a new project showing up. And so my previous action was stopped and interrupted. And that is the purpose of the past continuous tense. The past continuous tense is used to talk about an action that started in the past, was continuing in the present, and somehow got interrupted or stopped. Usually, in sentences, we state the reason for said interruption, which usually happens with something new happening or something that just happened at that point. So some other examples are, he was growing a tomato plant. Here it is that he was growing a plant. He started growing it at some point in the past. He was continuing to grow it before it got interrupted. Maybe he killed it, who knows. The second is, my second example is, they were having fun in the party until it began to rain. They were having fun. They started having fun at some point in the past, continued in the present, and because of the onslaught of the rain, that fun was interrupted. So that's it. 4 tenses over for the day. I'm exhausted and I'm really I'm just tired, to be honest. So right now on the screen, I'm presenting before you all the 4 tenses we've learned today with its formation and its examples. Pause, see if you understood. If you haven't, go back, listen to it once more and do it again. Now if you still haven't understood, you have to, well, at least if you have the courage to, you're more than welcome to ask me the doubts and I will reply. So see you guys in part 2. Bye.